Greg,
Yes.
albums turning 40 years old this year. One of your favorite albums, Bon Jovi by Bon Jovi, self-titled.
Yes.
Yeah. Or it's between that and 1984 by Van Halen.
One
Can you
second,
be,
please.
can you believe
Carry on.
1984 by Van Halen? Heartbeat City by The Cars, Reckoning by REM. A lot of great albums turning 40 years old. Private Dancer. Yes, Private Dancer by Tina Turner. Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. Purple Rain by Prince. The Unforgettable Fire, U2. Your wife's favorite artist, Bryan Adams, Reckless.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite album that's 40 years old? 40 years old.
It would have to be. I was going to say between Unforgettable Fire and Purple Rain, but I have to go Purple Rain. That was
Purple
just
Rain.
such a
Ah,
iconic
iconic.
album, iconic movie. Not an iconic movie, but just like part of that
Oh, yeah,
whole time
for sure.
and experience for us.
All right, Greg, let's get to our conversation with Stephen Page.
Hey, everybody, I'm Stephen Page, singer, songwriter, former Bare Naked Ladies guy, and I'm wishing you welcome to the music.
Welcome, 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 Stephen. It's we are so excited to have you on board. It's an honor. It's a privilege. It's everything. I have to tell you that I guess it was before the holidays. Went to the Horseshoe for a show, and I'm telling you, the next day at the office, I was going up to people and going, "Oh my God, you won't believe where I was last night." They're like, "Yeah, you've already told me twice," and like everybody were like they were going out and buying their tickets for Oakville, I think Oakville or Burlington, and Opera House and like anyway, I can't thank you enough for that show, for you, Mo,
Greg.
Craig and Chris. Sorry, Chris. And so like I just like it was an incredible show. And what I said to people about it, particularly, as we're getting towards the next set of shows, for me, it was as much about the banter between you guys or among you guys as it was the songs, which were incredible. So I want to thank you for that. Just want to get your thoughts on the Trans Canada Highwaymen and the shows and what's coming up.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That means a lot. I mean, that is, I'm glad that the thing that brings us so much joy in Trans Canada Highwaymen translates. Like, that was the biggest hope for us, and so far it seems to be working. That show at the Horseshoe was really, really exciting and fun. We've been doing this for a few years. We started in 2016. I think we did a tour of Ontario theaters and stuff in 2017. And it was just kind of intended to be that the gig is that we play each other's hits, but we swap instruments, and we thought it'd be really fun to kind of do this for festivals and whatever else. And when our beloved day jobs are taking a break, it's a fun thing to go and do. Like, we just enjoy being around each other. But that's the main thing, is we just enjoy hanging out. And I think the audience enjoyed that as well. And they can sense the camaraderie is authentic, and that they're included in on the joke. And during the pandemic, we were missing the opportunity to hang out with each other, spend a lot of time with text chains and stuff, keeping us entertained. And we had done a few videos that we put up online of like some of the songs that we do in our set. We did Alcohol, the Bare Naked Ladies song, and we did Ready for You, the Sloan song, and so on. And then we thought, well, why don't we just make an album? But it would seem kind of silly to make an album of those songs. Like we already have those, like our versions of those songs with our regular bands. So we thought, well, what if we did something that was like a K-Tel tribute? So Chris had this idea. He, brought up all these K-Tel records. For those of you who are too young to remember,
those are the best music. K-Tel.
Yeah, I mean, those records, like, I guess the closest for people who grew up in the '90s, the equivalent is like the Big Shiny Tunes.
Yeah,
These were they were really cheaply pressed. Like they put, I don't know, 25 songs on one vinyl LP, like a super thin record. It was just all noise, and then this but that was the time of AM radio, and we didn't know better. It was just the more stuff, the better. And they would make these compilation records, and they'd have all these kind of international hits on them, and then they'd have like 5 Canadian songs that we didn't realize weren't like international classics. They were just on the record along with everything else, and they might have been hits, sometimes regional hits in Canada, which is like a thing of the past for sure.
Yeah.
Or there would be a song that was like huge on the West Coast, and we never really in Ontario heard much of it. That kind of thing. So we all chose our favorite songs from 1969 to 75, which for me is actually like right before I really started listening to the radio. I was 5 in 75. So it was like, the next, if we do another volume, the next volume will be like, that will be my AM radio prime time. But anyways, we did most of it over the course of the pandemic, recording all of our parts at home. So like this studio where I'm in here, you can see I just did all my stuff from here, and we'd send them all to Craig, and Craig would mix all the tracks. And then Chris did all the artwork, and we did an infomercial for it and so on, which he also directed, and just had a ton of fun doing that. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. That means
it was. Yeah, and the line, okay, I told you this was the best song, but this is actually the greatest song ever. I kept anyway.
I wasn't able to be at the show. I was on another continent, but I've been loving this 17-minute infomercial.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
and it is hilarious in that you guys are like deadpan, trying to like, yes, we love, and then you're coming into the songs late. And I'm like, there must be hours of footage of you guys just cracking up, of your stomachs hurting.
Oh yeah, that's the best part of it. So we've been like slowly releasing just some of the blooper stuff out there as well, just because that was the fun. And there's nothing beats a good blooper reel. Like when at the end of the movie, especially like in the '80s when like Cannonball Run days, they would throw those bloopers of guys corpsing, laughing at stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, that was the best part of the movie. So same thing for the record, best part of the record.
Are there songs that I'm sure there are? There are probably songs that you guys love that will come on volume 2, because I have a recommendation.
Yeah, what's up?
For a song, Doug and the Slugs, Day by Day.
See, I was thinking Doug and the Slugs, Too Bad, but I think I don't know. It's one of those. I think we feel like we kind of have to put Doug and the Slugs on there. It's what the debate is right now is the next record 76 to 80 or 76 to 81.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in music between 80 and 81 in Canadian music. All of a sudden, it kind of like 81 is the beginning of the kind of new wave era in Canadian music, where 80 is kind of the end of the classic rock. So the kind of the Trooper era, for example. So do we split that up into try and do like volume 2 and volume 3, or do we just not push our luck and try and cram it all in one next record? I don't know.
No, let's do a volume 2, 3, 4. As long as many albums as you guys have time for. I think.
I will run through the office, tell everybody to go listen and download and buy it. And everything.
That'd be awesome. I would appreciate that. Yeah. I think we're talking volume 4 would be great if we could actually get the original singers of the songs that we've covered to cover our songs. So you get like, I don't know, you get
okay.
Whatever, Burton Cummings singing a Sloan song. But
and you guys are his backing band.
Exactly, and we're the backing band. But I think I suspect that we may have to act fast as
yes.
That generation is not getting any younger.
Well, none of us are. Although Mo still has the same hair.
I know Mo doesn't age.
No, he doesn't.
He's a vampire. I'm sure he's a vampire.
Yep. Yep.
So one of the things, so I grew up as a Scarborough kid, moved out to Durham, but went to Charlottetown. Karim's a Scarborough kid. His sister and myself both went to Scarborough Music Camp, which I
Okay.
know you were a counselor at, if as I understand.
Yep. I went there for a bunch of years.
So it's entirely possible you were actually Fize's counselor, or and back in the day.
Maybe.
I'm a little bit older than you, so wouldn't it be me? But what I want to talk about is like what impact did Scarborough have on you guys as you were like growing up and getting into the music business?
It was huge. I mean, like
Yeah.
the thing we didn't understand at the time was how, like, what a special time we grew up in such a special place. I mean, we grew up in a Scarborough that was rapidly changing. You know, when we were young, Scarborough was largely white working class, like Wayne's World,
Yeah.
which kind of shaped the way we saw the world. But very quickly, over the course of our kind of late elementary school into high school time, um, the borough became more and more multicultural, which was only helpful to us, even just on a musical level, like, you know, hanging out with kids from the West Indies who were like playing us music that we wouldn't have heard otherwise. That kind of thing was like changed our perspective a lot. But I think it stopped us from being kind of, I think we could have been rednecks and we weren't, you know. I think it's pretty easy when you live in a fairly homogeneous area to kind of become closed off. We were not that, so we were always interested in a million things, whether they were cultural things, musical things, jokes, whatever they were. It was just like we were always just trying to kind of eat it all up, especially me and Ed, at the beginning of Bare Naked Ladies. We were just influenced by everything we saw. But on top of that, and you know, and we knew that Scarborough had a bad rap. Like Scarborough was kind of, you know, it still does, and it was
Yeah.
it's Scarberia, and now we talk about it as being kind of like a place where all the crime and violence happens. I think Scarborough's awesome. I think it's better now than it was when I was growing up there. But um, but I think that you know, we knew that there was that stigma about it, and we like to couple that with the fact that like we would go to gigs downtown on Queen Street in our mom's cars, and like I'd load up Tyler's drum kit into my mom's Honda Accord and drive him home and drop his stuff off and go back to my parents' house and stuff. And we knew that it was funny to talk about it that way, like because you're not supposed to, especially back then. Like think about the era of like when like the U2 Joshua Tree, like
Yeah.
every picture of a rock band looked super serious, and like those people didn't live at their parents' house. You know, they weren't born in a car to go to a gig, so we knew that it was funny if we talked about it that way, and the audience dug it because they were doing the same thing.
They were exactly.
And so there was that common ground and that sense of kind of, again, the words overused, but authenticity. But add to that all the stuff that we got in Scarborough back then, like you talked about music camp. The two things that really shaped me, like my music program at Woburn, where I went, it was whatever, it was fine. You had to participate in it if you wanted to go to music camp, and I was also in the Scarborough School's youth choir, so I had to be in my school's music program, and I played flute terribly, but it was just kind of my way to say, okay, I'm in the music program, and then I'd go once a week to Agincourt Collegiate and go to choir practice. You know, not a thing you'd brag about back at school the next day, but for a few hours every Wednesday afternoon, me and 100 other kids would be singing like our lives depended on it. And like I didn't play sports. So for me, singing like that and striving for excellence with the conductor, Garth Allen was the choir director, was just amazing. Like he pushed us to be better than we could be on our own and to be the best versions of ourselves. So that thing, that like once you have that knowledge of what music can do, like when you're in that place and you all the desire to fit in and or to be cool or to be seen by girls or whatever the thing is what I was worried about, that all melts away and you're singing with your voice, which is such an intimate naked part of you, and you're exposing that, but in a group it's a transcendent thing that for me, I spent my whole life chasing and being in a band and being in a place where I can, like in a venue where the audience is singing, that's the same feeling. And that's what Scarborough gave me. And there's the same thing at music camp, never mind all the social stuff. And even though Ed and I went to the same high school, we didn't know each other until we started hanging out at music camp. And
Wow.
but really that band, Bare Naked Ladies, wouldn't have started without the camp, without the Scarborough school music system.
That's crazy. I actually still have a burn on my arm from 1979 when I was in the kitchen serving food, and I put my hand up against it, and the woman that worked there went, "Oh no, we need to put butter on that." Which I'm like 12 years old at the time. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's put butter on it." It's probably the worst thing could have done, but anyway.
Yeah, there's old wives' tale though, right? That's what they always used to say. Put butter on it.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk about like Queen Street and like fast forward to the time of the yellow tape and like just there's a buzz about you guys, Yuma City. I mean, I think CFNY back before they switched over to the George Michael, that little era in '89. But like they were promoting, that was, and I was a musician at the time too, so I was playing around with Lee's Palace and Shoe and everything else. So it's like there was such a buzz about you guys at that time. It must have been amazing. I'd love for you to just talk about sort of that breakout.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing because we played all the time. We just played in like any gig we could get. So yeah, all those venues, whether it was you'd start at some place like the Cabana Room.
Yeah, upstairs.
Jimmy Scopus would he was a tough nut, but he would give you like kind of your first gig. And like you had to have those gigs under your belt. And then you go to like the other places where they say, okay, you have to bring X number of people. And if you don't, you're never playing here again. They'd really like scare the hell out of you at the Rivoli or Ultrasound or whatever else. We'd build our way up. And luckily we had some club owners, some promoters who dug it. Like, we did it a lot. One of the things that really helped us was Ed and I, when we were just a duo before the other guys joined Bare Naked Ladies, we opened for a comedy group. I don't know if you remember Corky and the Juice Pigs.
Yeah.
Okay, so Corky and the Juice Pigs, Sean Cullen, Phil Nickel, Greg Neal, we were huge fans. Like they would be playing whatever at Western, and Ed would call me and say, like, let's go to Western. We'll drive 2.5 hours to go see Corky and the Juice Pig at the Spoke, and then get in the car and drive home. And we would just go see them anywhere. So when we'd make these tapes in our basement, the two of us, and we would just give them to any bands that we liked. And we'd bug them all the time, like, "Oh, did you listen to our tape?" And most bands would be like, not yet. And they were the same. But one day Sean Cullen listened to it and he loved it. And they talked to their manager and they said, "Do you guys want to come on tour with us across Canada?" Which of course.
Wow.
So we basically dropped out of York University and like we took the year to see whether we wanted to keep doing this. And we went from Ontario all the way out to Cape Breton and all the way out to Victoria, and just learned how to do it. Like we learned how, like we were playing comedy nights and stuff. We weren't a comedy group. I mean, obviously there was lots of jokes in what we did. And back then too, it was like there was a real stigma of doing humor along with music. Like people couldn't, like now you can make jokes as a musician all the time. It's great. You can kind of cross whatever borders you want and it works and people accept it. But at that time it was still a lot of gatekeeping in rock and roll. So, but on the other side, we would show up at a comedy night, not being a comedy group, but opening for a comedy group, and we'd have humor. We were, a band, but with humor in it. It doesn't always work at comedy night, especially like if it's, it was like a university pub or it'd be like some small town, and people would be booing or just talking through our set or not paying attention and heckling. And so we had to learn how to deal with all that stuff and how to learn how to put a set list together, how to actually engage with the audience, how to take the rejection of terrible gigs. So because we did that so early, by the time we were playing the Toronto clubs regularly as a full band, we kind of had a lot under our belts. We were also very young. We were 19, 20. We kind of thought, well, we've toured the country. Now we've paid our dues. We'll send a tape off to all the record companies and they'll sign us right away. And all the record companies in Canada were like, "You got to be kidding me. This is like some novelty group. They'll be over in 6 months. And let's not bother." And a lot of people, I think people were just embarrassed by us. And we would, So we would just kind of build up, like we had this sense of self-belief. But I wouldn't say it was arrogant, but I would say it was psychotic. Like it was,
Okay.
I think you have to have this weird sense of self-belief in order to keep doing it. But one thing that happened to us was we would start playing like residencies. Yvonne Matzel, who booked
Yeah, of course.
the ultrasound, started booking us every it was every Tuesday night or every Thursday night at the ultrasound. And I remember the first time we played there, it was like, whatever, half full. Second time it was full all the way back to the bar. The third time it was sold out. And the fourth time, like fourth week in a row, line up around the block to get in. And that's like when you realize, oh, these aren't just our friends from high school coming to the gig. These are just people talking about it. That kind of thing mixed with like stuff like CFNY, which was huge for us, got that buzz out there. And by beginning of 92, we were signed to Sire Records. So it really wasn't that long.
Crazy.
Plus, it felt like, oh, well, we've paid our dues. We've been around for years. But yeah, we've been around for about 3 years.
3 years, yeah. I want to go back to Agent Court. My son is now graduating from Agent Court
Awesome.
this year. And I didn't know that you had gone there for choir.
Yeah.
He's done choir there. He was in a choir before high school. He plays the trombone in the jazz band. And it's not even a music school.
Right.
Back when you went there for choir, what was it about Agent Court? Why is there music there?
Well, so that was like, it was the all city or all Scarborough choir, and everybody would come from whatever high school they went to after school to go there. And I think that was because Lee Willingham was the head of music then.
Yeah.
He's now a professor at Laurier University.
Oh,
He was so I think because of that he had a great vocal music program at Agent Court back then too. So I think that was our way in to that school, and they had a great auditorium that we would use. That was what we used for our rehearsals, and it was a good sized auditorium. So
yeah. So we found a video, and I totally forgot that Another Postcard was one of your songs.
Sure.
And this is a good segue because it's the second song I ever taught my son how to sing, or just first of the first song was Edelweiss from Sound of Music.
Nice.
And
It wasn't a Neil Young song.
No, it wasn't Neil Young song, not at all. And that's how we would put him to sleep, put him to bed, and he would not let us leave until we sang Edelweiss to him. Now, we never got that on tape, but I do have him on tape singing Another Postcard. I need to, let me do a screen share with you here. Hold on a second
All
here.
right.
Let's do screen share sound. All right. Let's see. Let me know if you can see.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Hopefully the sound comes through. Sing that again.
One is for me, and one is for you. Autumn pansies could be in my house.
Another.
And a posted some pansy, and a posted some pansy, and a posted some pansy.
You look in the camera and say
And
bye.
a posted bye.
Look in the camera and say bye. Look in the camera and say bye.
And it's for me. Bye.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hopefully he doesn't kill me.
Oh, he's going to. Oh, he's going to.
Oh, that's
Yeah, when Karim
great.
showed me that before we jumped on today, I said, you have to share that. That's just too
Awesome.
good.
Oh, that is awesome. Greg mentioned Neil Young, and we've started, and I'm going to go so many different places with this, but Greg and I started using AI tools for research. And we have found that some of these AI tools will take, Stephen Page as two separate things and try to connect them. So when I did a search on Stephen Page, and Neil Young came up. And it said that you've collaborated with him, but I couldn't find anything.
Well, the closest thing that you would say, we'd never collaborated with him specifically, although he did invite us to play at. He used to do these benefit concerts every year called the Bridge School Benefit.
You guys played the Bridge School.
We played the Bridge School. So there's actually a couple songs from that out on the streaming services, I think.
Okay.
But that was amazing. So that was like, we went, and I guess it's a 2-day event.
Yeah.
But the day before that is just sound check. So all the bands come and do their sound checks, and then after the sound check, they said, "Oh, it's a barbecue at Neil's Ranch," back when he still lived up in the Bay Area. And I just figured, okay, it'll be like some tent set up in the middle, because he had 1,800 acres or something in this near San Jose. So it's like, okay, fine, that'll be fun, but great. We get in the van and drive up. And we drive up to Neil's house, and we're in front of Neil's house, and there's like guys running the barbecue out front, and it's Crazy Horse running the barbecue out front. And there's like Billy Talbot flipping hot dogs. And then
he's got the band making food for you.
We go in, and we're just hanging out, like we're just loading up our plates around the table. And that show, it was us and Sarah McLachlan, who we were already good friends with.
Yeah.
Jonathan Richman, who is impossible to have a small talk conversation with, but I'm a huge fan of. So my mind blown. And Fish were on it.
Wow.
And REM, one of the favorite bands of all time.
Yeah.
And Neil Young. And so we're there in the house, eating dinner next to Michael Stipe, and then standing in Neil's living room talking about growing up in Ontario. And then he had a impassioned speech about how much he hated digital reverb, where he was yelling about it. It was awesome. But it was just, I'll never forget it. It was one of the greatest things. And the other thing that it made me think about was, like, it taught me a lesson, was like, in that house, he had all kinds of stuff, like memorabilia from his career on the walls. And I used to think, like, because I never had anything of like that said what I'd done. Like, it felt ostentatious. Maybe it's just the Canadian, but then I think, well, he's Canadian, and he's not showing it off. I realize it's not a show off thing. This is his life. He's like, these are his memories.
Yeah, it's like an album.
Yeah, it gave me permission to celebrate things I've done over my career in a way that I think I used to think I wasn't supposed to celebrate, because it would be somehow, I don't know, too self-aggrandizing or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It didn't come off as grand from him. It just came out. This is just his house, and it was like house that he built himself, or started by building himself, and it just got built outward and outward and outward, and it was amazing. So then a bunch of years later, we did another show with him on Vancouver Island, an environmental benefit. It was him, it was Randy Bachman and us and Neil, and that was, of course, awesome as always. So it's always just, by that point, like, he knew us, and I guess even when he invited us on the Bridge School, I think his daughter was a fan at the time, so that's why on that show. But I remember years later being at Live 8, which they had up in at Molson Park in Barrie. And I was getting ready to walk into the catering tent to get some lunch, and I hear behind me, "Hey, Steve!" And I look, and it's Neil Young, and he goes, "Got a joke for you." He says, "I thought this was called Live Bait because it was in Barrie, but it's Live 8." Not that funny a joke, but I know this guy. He's a joker. He's going to like this joke. And he's laughing away. I was like, I just couldn't think. Neil Young knows my name. That's what it was. He saw me. He's like, "Hey, Steve."
That's awesome.
The closest we got to collaborating was we all were on stage singing "Rockin' in the Free World" at the end of the whole
All
day.
right.
So it was like, Neil Young, and I think Dan Aykroyd was there, and
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Coburn, and The Hip, and us, and it was pretty awesome. But yeah,
Nice.
I mean, I've had those connections with Neil, and I mean, he is one of
Nice.
my all-time favorite artists, and I think so inspirational because he's always done whatever the hell he wants. Like, he's
Yes.
the king of that. He's shown that you can be weird, and you can be mainstream, and you can stick to your guns, and you can make a life and a career for yourself.
Yeah.
I love his music. I love watching him singing, watching and listening to him play live, and I would do that anytime. I've been lucky
Nice.
enough to see him a whole bunch of other times. I will tell you one other Neil Young story since we're here.
Yes.
Please.
In 1996, and actually I've seen this poster on people have been posting it on Facebook lately on various groups, nothing to do with me, but just like because it's this festival in England in 1996 had this insane lineup, which we didn't quite realize was as insane as you look at it now and you're like, what was going on? Because in 96, there was no Glastonbury that year. They took a year off. So there were even more acts going to play. So this, I think on the Saturday night, they had David Bowie. On the Thursday night, they had the Sex Pistols reunion. And on the night we were on, the headliner was Neil Young and Crazy Horse. But before that was earlier in the day, Alanis Morissette was on. When she had Taylor Hawkins was her drummer back then.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters were on before Alanis.
Oh.
So I remember seeing so Dave Grohl and Taylor and Alanis were all like hanging out backstage and stuff. We went backstage after we had played on the B stage in the afternoon. And we said, let's go. We knew Alanis from home. We said, let's go backstage and at the main stage and see if we can say hi to Alanis. So we did. We went back there and we're talking to her, and there's Foo Fighters guys and her band, and Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips is standing there. And we're talking to him for a bit, and Neil Young is about to go on stage, and he says, "Are you guys going to go on stage to watch Neil?" And we're like, "Well, I don't know. Are we allowed to?" And he said, "Well, Elliot Roberts, Neil's manager, said I can." And we're like, "Well, mind if we try and get on stage with you?" And he goes, "Well, you can always try." So we watched Neil and Crazy Horse walk up the ramp to go onto the stage, and Elliot's there letting them, go on. And we walk up right behind them, and he waves Wayne through, and he goes, whoa, who are you guys? And we said, we're this band, Bare Naked Ladies from Canada. We thought the Canada thing would help. It didn't. But he goes, "Oh, your band? Go ahead." All right. So we go up there, and stage left is packed with people. And security goes, "No, it's too busy. Go to the other side." So we walk over to the other side of the stage right. Me, Tyler from BNL, and Wayne Coyne walk in, and they let us in, and they cordon it off behind us. And we look around, and we're watching Neil Young and Crazy Horse on stage right, and it's just the three of us and Paul and Linda McCartney and the kids.
Wow.
That's it. Like,
Wow.
we're there by mistake. But it was so watch the entire set with the McCartney family, who were awesome. Like, so nice. This was not long before Linda passed away. She was sick, but they were passing a flask around the family and stuff, and they'd pass it over to us. And Neil would play like a bum note on the guitar, and Paul would come over and elbow me in the ribs and laugh at it or something, and talk to the kids a lot. And I remember he's singing Heart of Gold, solo acoustic in front of like 60,000 people, and the whole audience is singing. And Stella McCartney turns to me and says, "Oh, this is one of those nights I'm going to remember for the rest of my life." And I thought, "You're going to remember this. You do this all the time."
This is a regular Saturday night.
Yep. But it was amazing. I had actually seen them drive up, which I thought was like so. I mean, McCartney is my guy. Like, there's nobody bigger for me. I watched him drive up into the backstage, like not with security, not with another driver. Like, he just pulled up in his station wagon, with the family and parked backstage. So I knew he was there, but I still didn't expect that we were going to be watching the show with him.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Pretty
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. One of the collaborations that I did want to ask you about, and Kareem's actually afraid of the day he hopefully gets to meet Neil Young, because he's always making a comment, for want to meet your heroes.
Yeah.
I like, as a huge Duran fan and a guy who back in the early 80s was playing, Planet Earth at my high school auditorium kind of thing, in front of the school, and just geeking out over it. Like, I'm obviously a big fan of Stephen Duffy's as well.
Sure.
What was it like working with Stephen?
Well, Stephen he's amazing. He's just one of the greatest. I still think he's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. We've also become incredibly good friends, and like it's a weird thing for me to think like that kid. I was talking about the Scarborough Youth Choir. Here's another thing. Like when I was in the youth choir, we went to England for the summer in the summer of '85, and I used to do this thing where like I had my Walkman and I would go to the music store, like Music World at the Scarborough Town Center, and buy like one cassette I was going to listen to on some trip. Like this. So what? And I remember the whole day, like just spending the whole day like trying to decide. I was trying to decide between the Stephen Duffy first album, The Ups and Downs. What's it called? It was a Brian Ferry album, Girls and Boys, and REM, Fables the Reconstruction. Those three records, trying to decide which one I was going to buy. And I finally decided on the Stephen Duffy record, and of course listened to it the whole trip. And it was, it was I was 15. It was an amazing trip. We sang concerts all over the UK and in amazing locations like Westminster Abbey and stuff. And it was, again, another thing I'll never forget. But I had like my first girlfriend on this trip, and then she dumped me afterwards, and it was all tied into my memories of listening to this record. This record kind of helped me through it and helped me process it, and it was a soundtrack to it. And so I wrote a fan letter to Stephen as a 15-year-old Canadian kid, and this is obviously way pre-internet. And he wrote back like just a little, note of, encouragement and a couple signed pictures or whatever. But I think now, like, why the hell would you do that? But he doesn't even know. Like you
never told him?
Oh yeah, no, he knows.
Yeah.
Like, this is
like talking to his sister. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is how I met him. Like I would write him regularly. He put a single out, and I'd send him a review of it, like the way people do kind of on social media now. But
yeah,
I'd handwrite this thing, and he'd write me back, and he'd send me something else or whatever. And when I went over, 4 years later, when I was 19, I went over to do a summer session at Cambridge University, and I wrote him a letter and said, I'm going to be there if you want to, if you want to hang out, like some idiot, like, come on. And he writes and says, well, actually, I'm going to be rehearsing with my band. If you got time and want to come out and stay with us, just give me a call. Okay, so I gave him a call, and they picked me up at the train station, and I watched the Lilac Time rehearse for like 3 days, and then they were on their way to Cambridge to play at the Cambridge Folk Festival. They dropped me at my dorm, and that was that. So weird. Then fast forward another 3 or 4 years, and I was playing at the Bottom Line in New York City, and Stephen was in New York, and he came by at soundcheck. So we went out for dinner, and at this point, Gordon had been huge in Canada. We hadn't cracked it in the U.S. yet, but we were working hard. And he said, "Well, do you want to write some songs?"
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, how does this happen? So he came up to Toronto at the end of that tour, the end of '93. He came to Toronto for what was supposed to be 2 weeks, and ended up staying for 6 weeks. And we wrote a good part of what became the second Bare Naked Ladies record. But we've just been, very close friends ever since, and been through all the, as the album title calls it, all the ups and downs. And we're working on a new record together now. It's actually Balls of Mine. I have we did the Vanity Project record together that came out in 2005. So 20th anniversary of the Vanity Project, we'll do part 2.
Awesome.
Nice.
Beautiful.
That is awesome. We went on Facebook and we sourced some questions.
Yep.
And a bunch came in, but I really want to ask you this one. So this one comes in from Connie Crosby, and I'll just read her note here. One of the most memorable music moments in my life was standing on King Street West with thousands of people at the memorial service for Jack Layton, played on the loudspeakers from inside Roy Thompson Hall. Stephen Page singing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah was one of the most stunning performances I've ever heard. We were all absolutely still and silent out on the street listening. So our question to you is two questions. What was that day like for you? And do you still keep in touch with Olivia Chow?
The day was it was a whirlwind, and it was really really heavy. I was actually on my honeymoon in England when we heard that Jack had passed, and it was I was actually at Stephen Duffy's house when I heard that, and it was shocking, and I'd known him quite well and helped him get the nomination for the leader of the NDP. I worked really hard with him to make that happen, and worked on his election campaign and so on, and got to know him really well, him and Olivia. Love them both. And they asked, I reached out to the family, and Mike, his son, had said, well, we'd like you to come and sing Hallelujah at this if you can. So made sure that we were there to do it. And I guess they had, before he had even passed, made the plans of what he had wanted to be. So that was at his request, which was, that's a lot, a lot of like pressure. And I stood there next to the casket on the stage at Roy Thompson, and looking out at the audience at not only all the living prime ministers who were there and so on, and the leaders of opposition and everything else, and all these other dignitaries, but the family, and singing this song was that was a big deal, and I was really honored to be asked to do it. So I'm glad that that left a lasting impact for people. I have, I don't live in Toronto, so I don't see any of them very often, but I still am occasionally in contact with all the family, including Olivia.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's do this, Stephen. You've graciously said that you'd play a song for us.
Sure.
Why do we intro it? What are you going to play today?
I am going to move over to the other side of the room where I usually do my live streams. So it'll take me 1 second to get over there. But I'm going to do a song off my most recent album. I put an album out last year. I have no sense of time anymore. Thanks,
COVID years.
Yeah. Last year came out called Excelsior, and this is a song from it called "The Golden Age of Doubling Down." Let me get a little bit give you a little bit of reverb there. I'll see you over there in a second.
All right. Look at this.
Wow.
I'm a professional.
Like a pro. Like a pro.
I do these live streams every Saturday that I'm home, basically, where I started doing them during the pandemic. I do them over Zoom, and I still do them live from home. So I've done 114, 115 is coming up on February 10th. So if you want to come check one out, they're lots of fun. People still show up. They're I've done every song I've ever written at least once. And tons of covers, like I've done hundreds of different songs, and or there'll be a theme show, I'll play a whole album, or I'll do all requests or whatever else.
Can you tell us a little bit about this song? Like what's it about?
This is a song about, I think about how nice people are to each other on the internet, and gives me hope for the 2024 election coming up in the United States. I sense this restoration of peace and brotherhood.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Okay, here we go. coming back around. You can count me out if there's any doubt. So I'll offer you a moment of grace, just in case you misunderstood. You wouldn't say that straight to my face. Oh, you would? Well, of course you would. It's the golden age of doubling down. Just watch me now as I take a bow. If the olden days were half as good as the days we're in now, you can count me out if there's any doubt. In the golden age of doubling down, we're in crazy town, run by circus clowns. And if somebody suggests we take the temperature down, well, without a doubt, they'll be ushered out. You just speak the truth that needs to be told. You're so bold, you're a 10-year-old. When the cruelty is the point, I can tell. This is hell, this is actual hell. I woke up early from a wonderful dream, refreshed and energized by what I had seen. When the voice of God spoke, it was totally woke. The internet exploded in a puff of white smoke. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In the golden age of doubling down, and you're wondering how we could be here now. In the olden days, they got so good at pushing folks around that they're freaking out, acting so devout. Though I thought there might be some disconnect, I suspect I was incorrect. And if you can't say anything nice, my advice is to say it twice. Oh, in the golden age of doubling down, though I don't know how we survived till now. Since the olden days are coming back around, let's go underground for an ultrasound. You can tell me this is not who we are. That's bizarre. This is who we are. When it feels like nothing's left to defend or amend, this must be the end. Oh, this must be the end of something, I guess. This must be the end of something, I guess.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Come
thank you.
on. Oh my goodness. Stephen, if you could stay where you are, I have some questions about what's behind you there.
Yeah.
Is that a plug? We got a doll there behind you in pink and glasses. Who's that?
Yeah, so that's a fan made a little cartoon me with my pink.
Okay.
Nice.
And there's a little dancing steak. That was based on another in joke. There are lots of in jokes with these these live from homies. We spent a lot of time together over the pandemic.
Nice.
So those were made by fans. What else do I have there? I've got a bunch of like little synths and drum machines, and I've got the original back there is the original long box. You know, remember CD long boxes?
Yeah.
The original long box for Bare Naked Ladies Gordon,
Really?
with the CD still in it.
Do you have a copy of the yellow cassette?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So there. I was just wondering whether you would have that.
I should put it up there. Yeah, I do. I think I have one of everything.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Thank you for that song, man. That is fantastic. You want to get back to your?
I'm back over there.
Yeah. Okay. Look at that. Greg, can you make that happen? Can we have like multiple cameras?
I'm not that good, man.
Oh, all right.
I'm not that good.
Here we are.
That was fantastic. Stephen, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You've played all over the world, on your own, with Bare Naked Ladies, with other people. We have a segment called Lost Venues. These are venues that don't exist anymore. But you've got a story. It could be a horror story. It could be a funny story. It could be a sad story. Wondering, Stephen, if you have a story from a lost venue.
I have to think about that because I think there are plenty of plenty of lost venues with stories. Like, for instance, I was talking about that the Bottom Line where Stephen Duffy and I met up in New York. That's a great lost venue. Although it was a great venue, a legendary venue. You know, and there are lots of famous shows from there. Famous show where Rockpile played, and
Okay.
Keith Richards came up and played with them. And there's famous. Let's see. Oh, some of the Billy Joel songs in the attic songs were recorded at Bottom Line.
Wow.
Lou Reed, Take No Prisoners live, recorded there. But it's just like a small venue.
Yeah.
You know, a couple hundred seats, seated, like little cabaret kind of tables and stuff. But it was one of these places where, like, they paid you terribly. You had to do 2 full shows in a night, and you didn't get any drinks, like not even pop, no drinks, and no towels. They had water, and you had to bring your own. So we had to bring our own towels, and then pay for pop even if we wanted. It was just so cheap. And yeah, it was like you had to do a show at 7 and another show at 11 or something like that. But it was always like, why is this place legendary? But the guy who ran it, Alan Pepper, was actually really nice to us, and he actually did take us out of the clubs in New York and did our first presented our first theater show at the Town Hall in New York City. So I can't say all bad things about it, but it's one of those ones where it's like, God, just treat your artists a little bit nicer, a little bit more like human beings, and everything will just go great. But that was, you know, that's the way that lots of those venues are.
The Bottom Line.
Bottom Line, but it was a classic, and it's gone. R.I.P. So many good venues that are gone though.
Yeah.
You know, Toronto was full of dead venues. Toronto was like, there's so many places that, you know, for us, you know, the formative one was what I talked about before, was the ultrasound upstairs from X-rays.
Yeah.
That was hugely important to us, and you know, and gone. And yeah, here's another one. I remember a really bad gig at Ontario Place. Not Ontario Place Forum though, because Ontario Place Forum was awesome and I loved it. But in the spirit of Ontario Place being entirely gone now, and it's as sad as that is, I remember playing at there was a bar at Ontario Place, and the guy told us that we would never make it because we didn't sell enough beer.
What?
And, yeah. And I took that as a person. I was like, you know, I'm going to make sure I never sell beer. And I think we licensed a song to a Coors.
We will never sell beer ever.
It was one of those ones. Like after that, I was like, they have Molson Canadian Rocks. You always going? And I'd be like, no, I'm not doing a Molson Canadian Rock show. Some guy who was a manager of a bar at Ontario Place said we'll never make it because we don't. Sometimes you just don't need to take stuff so personally.
Yeah, well, you can be like that. That's good. One of the questions I'd love to ask before we finish up is, what are you listening to lately? What's in your ear pods, earbuds, whatever you happen to listen to, headphones, that people should be checking out? New, old, doesn't matter. Just what you listen to lately.
I'm really bad with new stuff, and I think a lot of people are as they get older. And I always admire people my age or older who are like still like just actively seeking out new artists. I should, you know, I do. Sometimes I do. But right now, I will tell you that my comfort music has been the entire catalog of the Four Seasons. For some reason. It's not a band I grew up with. Like, I mean, I grew up with in the sense like that music was around.
Yeah.
But it was never like, oh, that's my band. Those are my guys. It's not like, you know, I would have felt that way about the Beatles. You know, if you said the Bee Gees, I would, yes, sure. You said the Zombies, I would say, yes, sure. But something in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've just decided like I love the Four Seasons. I mean, yeah, I saw Jersey Boys. I saw it a couple times. I liked it a lot.
Harmonies? What is it?
It's the personality. I mean, and I've always loved that. It's always made me laugh. There's an element of, for me, of like it makes me laugh. Like the kind of the stereotypical Sopranos style mobsters. Like they're, you know, the Sopranos guys you could assign to one of the Four Seasons. But the songs are fantastic. The arrangements are, to me, are so exciting. You know, everything from the drumming to the sound of the orchestra to whatever else. Like, it's just, I just think they are, you know, there's lots of duds, but I love duds too. And I think one of the things is during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time listening to to Northern Soul stuff. So Northern Soul being kind of like, mostly stuff that didn't make it in North America. R&B records, kind of either lesser known Motown stuff or other labels records but had this kind of second life in the 70s and in the UK. And that stuff kind of became the soundtrack of like what I was listening to all the time in the pandemic. And I think that just meant that some of, like, for instance, my Spotify started just feeding me more stuff from the 60s and early 70s. And that's, some of that stuff would come in and I go like, I love this. And it's kind of my comfort food now.
That's great. That
great. Is awesome.
Well, we appreciate you coming on before Karim wraps it up. So we've now had Mo on, we've had Craig on, we've had yourself on. We need would you call it a quadfecta? We need to get Chris on before the shows in the spring. That way we can nail the quadfecta of the
That'd be great.
Canada Highwaymen.
Yep.
We will reach out. Well, Greg, when is that show we're going to?
It's Easter weekend, isn't it? Easter Saturday, I think.
Is that right? What is that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes, you're right. It is Easter. It is
Easter Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll celebrate the Christ, the baby Jesus.
Yeah, you got it. March 30th. March 30th is what that is.
March 30th.
Is that right?
Trans Canada Highwaymen at where's the gig at?
Opera House.
That's at the Opera House.
At the Opera House.
But we're all over Canada.
That's true.
But in March, a bunch of shows in Western Canada, and then in April, I think we're doing stuff in Ontario, and then back in the summer, hopefully, and then more stuff in the fall. So just keep your eyes open.
Nice. TransCanadaHighwaymen.ca.
You got it.
For the 17-minute TV show / commercial.
Yep.
That is a time well spent on the internet. And StephenPage.com for more Stephen Page goodness. And can people go there for your at-home shows as well?
Yeah, so if you just scroll down, it's about a third of the way down the page. You can buy tickets for Live from Home. Yep.
That is awesome. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. This has been a joy for us, and looking forward to seeing you play this spring.
Well, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Take care.
Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.
That was our guest, Stephen Page. That was fun.
That was fun.
That was a lot of
fun. Great chat. Hope you had as good of a time as I did.
Yeah. No, that was great. And he still has his charm, that voice.
Oh.
It's still there.
Yeah. Brilliant.
That is fantastic. So again, that show is March 30th at the Opera House, TransCanadaHighwaymen.ca. Go there. If you're not in Toronto, go there, figure out where you can go.
Tons of shows around Ontario to check out.
You got to go. I'm telling you, when you told me you saw that show, I think you messaged me. I was, on a safari, coming back from a safari in Africa. I had data I had purchased, so I just started listening to their album. And just fantastic songs and fantastic musicians.